It seems as though collaborations have become an absolute mainstay of Fortnite, and with the Pirates of the Caribbean collaboration right around the corner introducing a brand new collaboration item, it really reminded me of how many collab items we have, and in this video I wanted to rank every single collaboration item in Fortnite history from worst to best. And before I get into this video, there are a couple of outliers that I have to get out of the way at the beginning of this video. Firstly, there will be no Peter Griffin's pump shotgun on this list. That is not a real collab item. They just took a regular item and put Peter Griffin's name on it. All lightsabers will be grouped together, as well as all Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle mythics. They will all be grouped as one. There will be no LTM exclusives, so no Avengers items like Hawkeye's bow, all that type of stuff. And that does include Thanos' Infinity Gauntlet. I will not be ranking that on this list. There will be no Kingsman Umbrella or Infinity Blade, as these items are heavily rumored to be collaboration based, but they are not officially confirmed as collab items by Epic Games or anybody at Fortnite, and so they are not going to be on this list. And finally, I will not be including the Ship in a Bottle. That's the mythic I was just talking about. It comes out in like a day as I'm recording this video, so I can't rank it. With all that being said, if you go on to enjoy this video, it took me a while to make, so be sure to leave me a like and use code TYFRYZ in the Fortnite item shop to help support the channel so I can keep making videos like these. But let's finally get into this. And in last place at number 47, the worst collaboration item of all time is Cash. Most people probably didn't even know this existed. This was part of the Borderlands Pandora collab, and Cash was entirely useless. There was not a single thing in the game that you could do with Cash, so it is definitely deserving of the worst spot. At our number 46 spot is the cardboard box, and I honestly forgot that this was even a collab item, but it's literally just a box. At our number 45 spot is Predator's cloaking device, and at our number 44 spot is EMP stealth camo. They basically kind of do the same thing. I mean, they are basically both just cloaking devices, except the stealth camo gives you that cool EMP effect that can do some damage to players. At number 43 is Black Panther's kinetic armor. At number 42 is the paper bomb kunai. At number 41 is the Mandalorian's jetpack. Mando's jetpack isn't terrible, I guess, but it doesn't do enough to get it any higher on this list. Most people just took his sniper rifle and left the jetpack behind anyways. At the number 40 spot is the First Order blaster rifle. At the number 39 spot is the E11 blaster rifle, and at number 38 is the DC-15 blaster rifle, a trio of Star Wars weapons. I honestly think that they are all very poor weapons, but I do actually think the DC-15 is the best out of all three. At number 37 is the Thunder Spears, and at number 36 is Deadpool's dualies. I feel like I've spoken so much about these weapons over the past couple of days that it's just basically beating a dead horse at this point, but they absolutely sold the bag here on Deadpool's weapons. They suck, and the gameplay will probably speak for itself. I mean, 3 HP back per hit is just not enough to justify cutting the damage in half from what a regular dual pistol would do. And at our number 35 spot is the Tri-Beam laser rifle. And this was honestly a really hard weapon for me to rank because it hasn't been in the game for that long. And making it even harder on me to rank is the fact that this is really a confusing weapon. I mean, let's be honest. It is one of the only hit scan weapons in all of Chapter 5, and it does feel really refreshing to use a hit scan weapon again finally, but this weapon is like weirdly inaccurate but also accurate at the same time. I don't know, the bloom feels all over the place with this weapon, but the damage is pretty solid and good damage to vehicles, which we all know is so important in Chapter 5 Season 3. I honestly just don't find myself picking up this weapon often. At number 34 is the explosive batarangs. At number 33 is the straw doll technique. At number 32 is Storm's whirlwind blast, and at number 31 is Bender's shiny metal ray gun. And Bender's shiny metal ray gun is actually pretty decent. It basically has like infinite hit scan. I mean, you could hit somebody from across the map instantly with this thing. But of course, it does pretty low damage and absolutely horrible damage to structures. So unless you're playing like zero build, this thing is going to be pretty useless. But I mean, it's decent, I guess, right? And at our number 30 spot is earthbending. And I feel like this would probably be a good time to say that I am a builds first player. I rarely play zero build, and so you can see why earthbending was not good for me. I feel like it's pretty much the majority consensus of the community that earthbending was the worst avatar mythic, so I don't think it's a surprise to see it kind of in the bottom half of this list. At our 29 spot is Wookiee Bowcaster. At 28 is She-Hulk's Fist. At 27 is Venom's Smash and Grab. At 25 26 is the Wolverine Claws, and at 25 is Nuka-Cola. And this really kind of begins the turning point of weapons and items that are actually pretty decent and will get the job done in most cases. And all things considered, Nuka-Cola is a really solid healing item. I don't really have any complaints on it. I mean, it kind of sucks that it is an epic tier item, so it's a little harder to find. But in terms of healing items in Fortnite history, I feel like Nuka-Cola is kind of in the middle of the road. And of course, this is part of the Fallout collab. At our number 24 spot is Batman's grapnel gun, and at our number 23 spot is Todoroki's ice wall. And as I previously mentioned, I do not play zero build. To me, this is an item that was absolutely dominant in zero build, a must carry, but in build mode, it's pretty useless. So if you are a zero builds player, I could see this list looking totally different and this being a top 20 collab item easily. But for myself, it stays right outside of the top 20. At the number 22 spot is Thor's Mjolnir Strike, and at the number 21 spot are lightsabers. And again, lightsabers were almost impossible to rank because I am not a fan of lightsabers at all, I'll be honest with you. And when they were introduced in Chapter 2 Season 1, I didn't think they were that great, right? All you could do was basically block bullets and occasionally throw the lightsaber. Nothing really crazy, let's be honest. But in Chapter 4 Season 2, when they added all the new ones and they basically got a whole revamp where you could now have all these abilities like, you know, pick up the ground and throw it at people, all that type of stuff, then they became really, really strong. But since, of course, they are all being put in one spot, I had to take into account both versions of the lightsabers. So take with that what you will. At our number 20 spot is firebending, and at number 19 is the Magneto power. And again, this is another relatively recent item. I think it's only been in the game for like a week and a half, so cut me some slack here. It's all around a pretty decent item. I mean, you can attack players with the metal clumps. You can also block incoming damage by using the shield ability, and of course you have low gravity when they're equipped, so you can jump higher and gain immunity to fall damage. I do think it's pretty good, all things considered, but I just haven't had a ton of time to really get used to it and see what the community kind of consensus is on this thing. But anyways, at the 18 spot is Groot's Bramble Shield. At number 17 is the Carnage and Venom symbiote. I'm putting those together because they do the exact same thing. And at the number 16 spot is Doctor Doom's Arcane Gauntlets, and at the number 15 spot is Iron Man's Repulsor Gauntlets. And you can tell now that we're starting to get into some of the really good Marvel collab items. Of course, that whole season was a collaboration, but there were like 10 or so mythic items that are all going to be on this list because they were all Marvel items. And of course, we've already seen some of the more lackluster ones on this list, like Storm's Whirlwind Blast, but the Doctor Doom Arcane Gauntlets and the Iron Man Repulsor Gauntlets are both very solid. They were both pretty sought out that season, and honestly, you could switch either of them 15, 16, and it wouldn't really matter. They're pretty similar, but I think the Iron Man beats it by a little bit. And at the number 14 spot is the Cybertron Cannon. I honestly had expected the Cybertron Cannon to be much higher up on this list, but I guess I didn't realize how many good collaboration items there really are. I just wish that the Cybertron Cannon did not push you back when you shot it. I got killed so many times because I was jumping, shot this thing, and went flying off my build. It was so annoying. With that being said though, this is an incredibly good explosive item, one of the top tier really launchers ever. The fact that that projectile traveled so quickly is absolutely criminal. I mean, I remember getting 200-meter kills with an explosive weapon because this thing had no drop off, no damage drop off, of course, and the projectile was almost instant. Oh yeah, you also had infinite ammo. If you were playing duos or squads and you were lucky enough to get 2-3 people to have this thing, you could apply immense pressure to anybody. And I remember me and my buddies used to mark somebody's wall and just do it at the same time, shoot this weapon, boom boom, and they were basically instantly dead. It was that good. And at the number 13 spot is the Amban sniper rifle. Look, I love this weapon. I am a fan of snipers. I love sniping. I always have, and the Mandalorian is a really cool IP. And if I remember correctly, this was the first ever thermal sniper ever, and they did a great job. I mean, let's be real here. It really is just a bolt action with a thermal scope and sounding cooler. But hey, I mean, what's wrong with sounding cooler, right? People also tend to forget that this actually did have a melee attack, but I guess it is quite forgettable since really nobody ever used it. It still is a really cool item that hasn't been in the game since Chapter 2 Season 5, and honestly, I don't think we'll ever see it again. At the number 11 spot is Silver Surfer's Board, and at the number 10 spot is the Nimbus Cloud. And honestly, they really did the exact same thing. I mean, you would press your button to go into the air and hover, and then you could drop at any time with no fall damage, of course. I know there were some nuances with each one. I know they're not exactly the same. There's some pull-out delays when you drop down with one or the other, but you could honestly put them in any order. It doesn't really matter here, but I had to put them back to back because they are so close in function, at least. And with that, we have officially cracked the top 10. And guys, these next 9-10 items are extremely solid, basically must picks if you see them on the ground, and they are not to be messed with. At the number 9 spot is all the anime mythics, particularly Hollow Purple, Deku Smash, and the other one. If you watch one of my videos, you know I got memed for my pronunciation, so I'm not even going to say it here. I know I have a chance to redeem myself. I'm not even going to say it, but you know what I'm referring to. Kameyama, I don't know. That's all you guys are getting out of me because I'm going to get memed in the comments no matter how I pronounce it. I don't watch anime, all right? But even with that being said, these are all extremely strong. I mean, incredibly strong, and you could definitely put them higher on this list. And they all basically do the same thing. I mean, let's be honest. You basically press RT on controller, of course, and just push forward an absolute wave of destruction and damage, and it just destroys anything in its path. So I decided to group all three together, but if I had to pick one that was the best, I would say probably Deku Smash. They are all so fun to use, though, I will say that, and some of my best and most fun clips in my entire history of playing this game have come from using these three items. And at the number 8 spot is Ride the Lightning, and this is a really interesting one because in theory this should be the best mobility item ever. And of course this is from the Metallica collab that we just had pretty recently in the last month. And it is honestly incredible in early game and mid game, but it basically becomes totally useless in end game, let's be real. And so for example, I would rather have the Nimbus Cloud late game, but I would rather have Ride the Lightning early game and mid game, so it kind of depends on how you look at it and honestly what you value more. I also really hated the fact that opponents could just follow you, right? I mean, they could just hop onto the guitar and follow your exact same path. That was really annoying, but still, it is one of the best mobility items ever. I honestly can't even believe it existed, and it was so cool, so fun to use, and honestly, let's be honest, that's the most important thing, right? To have fun. But speaking of items that are fun to use, at our number 7 spot is Dr. Doom's Mystical Bomb. I vividly remember on launch day using this thing for the first time and being like absolutely flabbergasted, hornswoggled. I mean, I don't know what else to say. It literally just spawned you with a huge ball of energy, right? And it had a short downtime, so it would just keep refreshing. You would have infinite mystical bombs, right? In my opinion, it's basically a Cybertron cannon, but a better version. My only problem with this item, of course, is that you do kind of become a sitting duck when you are holding it up. If you remember, you just hold it above your head and just run out, right? So, I mean, that is a little bit of a disadvantage, but you had really good splash damage. I mean, you could throw it around someone's wall and you could hit them behind it. Great area of effect, great splash damage. I mean, everything that you would look for in an explosive item you have here. And at the number 6 spot, I combined the Spider-Man web shooters and the Spider-Verse web shooters. And honestly, you may be surprised to see them this low on the list. I mean, there was definitely a time when these were no doubt the best mythic and also the best collab item ever. And at one point, they were the best mobility item of all time, but we have since seen better. Still, with that being said, these are still some of the best mobility items. And I think it especially has to go ahead of Ride the Lightning because your opponents couldn't follow you, at least when you were using these items, pending that they don't have them themselves, right? They were also just super fun to use. I mean, the whole Spider-Man animation, the mechanic behind using these things was super clean, super well fleshed out, and just felt great to use. They were great for third partying, and they were also great for leaving fights. I mean, they were great for rotating. You could do whatever you wanted with these things. I really don't have any complaints. I mean, I feel like they balanced them really well by tuning down the amount of uses that you get in it, and also by making it so that when you get hit, you're kind of stuck in that animation and you're delayed from using them again. And at the number 5 spot is one of those better mobility items, and that's ODM gear. Introduced in Chapter 4 Season 2, and they absolutely nailed it out the park here. Just such a cool item all around. And if I remember correctly, I think this has to do with another anime collab, but regardless, I mean, the fact that it was in a season with the Kinetic Blade, another one of the best mobility items we've ever seen, and the fact that it still shined should go to show, honestly, how good it was. And you not only had great mobility, but you also had a cool damage attack as well. And while I wasn't the biggest user of that damage attack, I can acknowledge the fact that it is there and it is really good. Again, this is another example of a mobility item where you can use it to engage in fights, you can can use it to disengage in fights, you can use it to rotate from zone, you can use it to attack players. I mean, you could do everything with this thing. It's that versatile, and absolutely a top 5 collab item ever. And at the number 4 spot, and honestly, it surprised me that it was this high, it's the Stark Industries rifle. I mean, let's be honest, this is the first like real solid weapon on this list. The rest have been like goofy items like the Mystical Bomb and the Unibeam and the Cybertron cannon. I mean, I know that's not necessarily true, like we had the sniper rifle and the Triforce rifle, but I mean, this thing just feels different. And honestly, I just have a clip ingrained in my head, Mongrel absolutely frying with this thing. The unlimited first shot accuracy made this thing a beam, especially in endgame with people gliding around everywhere. And it was really unique in the fact that it had that really fast hip fire, but was really slow and clunky when you were aiming down sights, and the damage would change depending on how you shot the weapon. And you are doing big time damage when you're aiming down sights here, but it is super slow, so you kind of pick your poison. But in Chapter 2, Season 4, most players use this as not only their assault rifle, but also their SMG, because the hipfire was that good. And that versatility allows for an open inventory slot, and we all know how precious those inventory slots, especially in a season like Chapter 2, Season 4, where everything seemed to be broken. Of course, we've recently seen the Stark Industries rifle basically retooled into the pulse rifle and items of that nature. I mean, I guess the Triforce rifle to an extent, but the original is the best. The Stark Industries rifle is really strong, and also it was really easy to get. It was all over that map. And at the number 3 spot is what I consider to be the best mobility item we have ever seen and potentially will ever see. That's airbending. And man, they came absolutely different with the Avatar collab. I honestly don't know what to say about this thing. I mean, just watch the gameplay, right? It speaks for itself. You could literally infinitely travel across the map. You could get from one side of the map to the other, no problem. The only thing I can complain about here, honestly, is that you are very exposed when using this thing, and it's not the quickest, right? While it is long lasting and you can get from point A to point B effectively, it's not the quickest. Regardless, you can still jump and dodge bullets, make yourself a harder target, and I honestly don't know that we will ever see it again, but I really hope we do. Airbending was so fun to use. And at the number 2 spot on this list is Iron Man's Unibeam. This is, of course, the final Chapter 2 Season 4 mythic. And this was really the precursor to the railgun. I mean, let's be honest. But the thing that separates it from the railgun and what makes it so much better is the fact that you didn't have that red beam showing up when you were like aiming down sights or charging it up, you know? I mean, you like kind of had that with the Unibeam, but it wasn't as prominent as it was with the railgun. I feel like oftentimes you could catch players by surprise using the Unibeam when they were just sitting in their box. There was like a little red orange glare on the opposing side of things, if you know what I'm talking about. It's kind of hard to explain. You could literally just pierce through any builds, any wall. It didn't matter. The Unibeam would go right through it. And while the damage wasn't entirely the best, the fact that you had unlimited, right? You just had to wait for the cooldown makes it even stronger than it already is. And I think it deserves to be this high on the list. But at the number 1 spot, and honestly, I went back and forth between so many items that could have been here, but it has to be waterbending. And as I said earlier, guys, they came absolutely different with the Avatar collab, and this is a prime example of it. If you haven't watched me rank every single mythic for the 10,000 subscriber special, go check that out. I won't spoil it, but waterbending was pretty high. So if I was going to rank it super high on the list of every mythic, you knew that it had to be high here on the list of every collab. And this thing is literally a sniper, an assault rifle, a submachine gun, everything all in one. I literally would just take this and a shotgun, that's it. And this thing absolutely plagued Chapter 5 Season 2, I believe it was. I mean, this thing was everywhere, and it literally just dropped out of chests. Everybody was using this thing. You had infinite ammo and a reload time that was almost nothing. It literally was so quick. The projectiles were very fast traveling, had no damage fall off if I remember correctly, and almost no bullet fall off. Like, the projectiles didn't really drop that much. You also had the healing capabilities when you were in the water. I mean, what else do you want from this thing? If you remember correctly, they didn't actually launch like this. They weren't great, but then on April 5th, it got a huge buff, increased fire rate by 20%, increased damage from 22 to 24, increased headshot multiplier from 1.25 to 1.5, and doubled the projectile speed, and then this thing just became unstoppable after that. I don't know what else to say, guys. You can argue all you want in the comment section, but I will hold firm that this is the best collaboration item of all time. Phew, oh my god, that video was an absolute doozy to make, so if you guys could drop a like if you enjoyed it, I would really appreciate that. Let me know in the comments what you think. If you would move move any items around, if you would change my rankings, let me know. I read all your guys' comments. But with all that being said, subscribe for more content like this, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace.